Alright guys, in this week's video, we're just gonna go over some random tips, tricks, hacks that you guys can employ the next time you're in the woods. So let's get started. So there's not many things that I carry with me every day, but one of them is just a standard lighter with some duct tape wrapped around it. And this is actually Gorilla Tape. It's a little bit thicker than your standard duct tape. The uses for duct tape are absolutely limitless. One of the things that I carry it for is getting fires going. It burns very, very well, and it's great for getting a fire going in less than perfect conditions. I've used this stuff to patch up holes in tents and other gear. The uses for duct tape in the backcountry are, again, limited only by your imagination.
Blah, 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 blah.
And speaking of lighters, if you're not diligent about making sure that your lighter has plenty of fuel, you might find yourself in the backcountry with a lighter that has no fuel. Now there is a way that you can still start a fire with a lighter that has no fuel in it, and I'm going to show you how. A spent lighter has everything you need to start a fire. If you take your knife and just make very fine shavings off the plastic, that can act as tinder. Now, the part that makes the spark is actually just a very small ferro rod. And if you roll the striker and you're careful to not make a spark, you can shave off ferro dust into that pile of tinder. So once you've got a good gray layer of that ferro rod powder on top of your tinder pile, you can go ahead and strike it, and that ferro dust that you scraped off of the little micro ferro rod will catch and spark, and that'll generate the heat to get your tinder bundle going. And if you had the foresight to have a piece of duct tape laying by, if you're lucky enough to have a piece of duct tape, put that over the top, and that'll get going and extend that flame a little bit more. So one of the things I like to do when I get a new pair of boots is to take the stock bootlaces and replace those with paracord bootlaces. I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one is that paracord bootlaces will not break. I have never broken a pair of paracord bootlaces. Number two, paracord is just much more versatile and much more useful than a bootlace. I've been out many times and I've taken my bootlace out, cut the end off of it, taken the cores out of it to use for some purpose, and then use the outer sheath of the paracord to lace my boots back up. The uses of those inner cores of the paracord when you're in the backcountry are limitless. So a couple of tips for making paracord bootlaces. Number one, just take your bootlaces out, cut the paracord to the same length, and then of course you want to heat and melt the ends of the paracord. But one tip to help make it easier to lace your boots with these paracord laces is just to heat the last inch or 3/4 of an inch or so of the paracord to stiffen it up. That's going to help you get the paracord through the eyelets of your boots. Now when these paracord bootlaces are brand new, they're going to be a little bit slick, a little bit slippery, and so your boots are going to want to come untied. But after you use them for a little bit, they roughen up and they stick very well, and your boots are going to stay tied just like any other bootlaces. So one thing that seems to be a constant problem if you carry paracord is how to keep this stuff organized and not making a huge mess in your pack. I'm going to give you a quick, easy way to keep it in a nice bundle so that it doesn't get all knotted up. I'm going to just roll this stuff up, and I'm going to leave myself maybe 4 or 5 feet tail like that. Now I'm just going to take this, wrap it over itself just like that. I'm going to pull that tight and then just keep wrapping, pulling it tight with every revolution. Now I'm going to stick this back on top just like that, and I'm going to continue wrapping. Coming over itself like that, and that's going to tuck this tail end under a couple of wraps. Then you can pull it, and that is secure. You can throw this in your pack and it'll stay just like that for as long as you want it to. So one common problem people run into when they're splitting firewood is that they'll hit the wood and they get their axe stuck. A great way to avoid that is just to take your axe head and tilt it to the side just a little bit. What that's going to do is put some outward pressure on it. It'll split these halves apart. Another tip is to just find the natural split in the wood and align your first split with that. So I'm going to tilt this axe head just to the side, just a wee bit. Another thing you should notice is I'm spreading my legs apart in case something happens that I miss. I'm not going to hit myself in the shin. So if you're working with a small hatchet like this, you can do the same thing. Just turn it to the side a little bit. Again, spread your legs out in case something happens. You don't want to smack yourself. See if I can split this big chunk here with this little hatchet. Look at that. It also helps if your wood's really dry. So if you find yourself in the woods in need of a draw knife, one easy way to make one is just to take a short section of stick, maybe 8 inches long, bind the end with paracord or some other kind of cordage, and then just take your sheath knife or even a folder and drive into that short section of stick. That gives you a handle on both sides and it works very, very well. So just a quick tip on sharpening knives: if you can find a flat stone, they work great. And if not, you can take the end of a piece of cut firewood and rub some clay or other soil with a little bit of grit in there, and that actually works very, very well. And you can put a razor sharp edge on a blade with just a little bit of mud smeared into the end of a piece of wood. So one cool little way to make a stool if you're in the woods without any cordage is just to take 4 poles of approximately equal length and do something like that. If you find yourself in the woods getting eaten up by mosquitoes and didn't have the foresight to bring bug dope, you can oftentimes find a natural replacement. Now here I have spearmint, which doesn't last as long as something like DEET, but it's actually pretty doggone effective. Now we are in the Rocky Mountains here and mint is all over the place, but what you have is going to depend on where you are in the world. So you're just going to have to look at what type of plants you have locally that have insect repelling properties. The woods are full of natural foods and medicines that people have been using for thousands and thousands of years. And right here in this fir tree, we have a natural antiseptic in these little blisters that are in the bark here. If you push on one of these and pop it, you're going to get pitch out, and that is a very, very good dressing for wounds. And perhaps the most important tip of all, if you're in the woods and you got to do the do, and you're looking for some natural toilet paper, the name of the game here is absorbent, and personally I like soft, but you know, if you like hard, go for it. This, bad. This, good. You'll thank me later. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed that video. I might do another one like this if there's enough interest in it. There's a bunch of little tips and tricks and hacks like this that you can employ when you're in the woods, make things a little bit funner, a little bit more enjoyable. So with that, have a good time this fall and we will see you next time.